Good afternoon. I usually like to speak sort of freely, but there's a lot of you and I'm a bit sort of tense, and that this is a very serious event, a prestigious event that I'm very happy to be part of. And yeah, a bit of nerves because it's been 262 days, but I also have a message that I want you to take home with you, and that's why I decided to write it down. I don't usually write it down, but it was written down kind of associatively, so maybe it'll be like, so an afternoon of sunlight. It's Monday, the 24th of June, 2024, and it is now. Now it is 262 days. I wrote that number wrong. I wrote 162, but it's 262. 262 days in which my daughter, Romi, who's beautiful and funny and wonderful and very Israeli, and another 119 hostages are still held by pure evil, the organization of terror, the Hamas. 262 days now. We have been every single second fighting to bring them home, working night and day around the world in order to make sure that all of the hostages come home. And some have come home and told their stories of the tortures that they have undergone, tortures of the mind and the body. The Hamas that attacked us, that infiltrated into our beautiful country, also infiltrated our souls and the bodies of women, using sexual violence as a planned act of war, a brutal act of atrocity meant to humiliate and abase. Our national anthem says that we should be a free people in our country. The decision of the UN, after which the State of Israel was established, supposed to be a safe homeland for Jews around the world. These two promises were broken in one day when pure evil crossed our borders, infiltrated our land, and it took violently over 200 women, citizens of Israel mostly, and also women of 23 other countries in the world. In one second, our heart was torn out of our bodies, and we all since then are fighting to bring back. No one prepared me as a mother for these horror scenarios in which in real time I see the kidnapping and taking hostage of my daughter, the moments themselves. There was no script, there was no manual that would have told me what to do and how to respond in those moments, and all the moments, all the long minutes, and all of the hours, and all of the days, the long days, the weeks after, and now months after. 8.5 months where Romi is still not here. Where 120 women who had life and dreams and plans never came home back to our country and to their own homes. Some will come back in body bags to be buried in the land in which they were born, in which they had families of their own. And through the last 8 months, I personally have felt that I am fighting for my personal resilience and security. The Romi's security and resilience of all my 5 children, and for all the families of the kidnapped and hostage and held hostage and people who were held hostages, as if they had been selected particularly so that they will provide a representation of Israeli society, and yet discovering that we're all fighting for the same thing, to rebuild as a people the feeling that we can live safely in our country, that we will become stronger and stronger, and of course, as said by President Nicholas Taib, as we become less breakable. Less breakable people, anti-breakable people are not breakable. They're not fragile, but not only are they not breakable, but that every time they encounter a terrible, terrible challenge, they become even more impenetrable. And even if we haven't discovered this yet, this is the truth that we will uncover about ourselves. And that's the idea behind national resilience and personal resilience. We all become less breakable and our national resilience increases. And through the last 8 months, this has been a terrible challenge to face the fact that we, families of the hostages, so different, so diverse, with very different opinions and sometimes contradictory opinions, the difficulty of seeing any kind of deal moving ahead, one step ahead and then 10 steps back, so the knowledge that my beloved, wonderful, beautiful daughter is there in the tunnels of the Hamas 262 days now. That is the biggest challenge we face. My own daughter, that I, as a mother, I'm responsible only for one thing, to keep her safe. That responsibility didn't happen on October 7, and I carry that pain every single day. I was often asked, what helps you hold it together, to stay positive, to be reserved? Why aren't you going crazy and screaming and shouting? So I have to say, I do scream and shout. I do get angry. Sometimes I scream and shout. That's totally normal and natural. Maybe that's another lesson in personal resilience, to accept the fact that you are human, to allow yourself to learn new things about yourself. And that is also the secret to unbreakability, that if I know that about myself, the place in which I am maybe a bit weaker, I'll be able to overcome it. The thing I learned in this fashion is that I have a civil responsibility I cannot ignore. When individuals are important in the national endeavor, their resilience becomes greater, and through that also national resilience improves, because being alone is unbearable, certainly in such a turbulent and challenging time. And in this, maybe we should again say sorry to Goldin, Asaya, Berel families. I'm sorry that we left you alone. I'm sorry that we reduced your sense of resilience, and also our own national resilience, all of us collectively. This civil responsibility manifests in the fact that we can change a state reality, a national reality. And I had a kind of a pop-up message today on Twitter from the 10th of October, in which a senior official said, because that none of the people then included any kind of plans to bring the hostages home, he said, the matter of the hostages will be examined at the end of the war. Since then, of course, it's been a long time, and we've changed the goals of our fighting, and two goals, of course, are fighting, combating the Hamas, and bringing the hostages home. And I hope we understand more and more that the return of the hostages should be the first priority.
National resilience relies on something else. At the very heart of the values of the State of Israel, all Jews and all Israelis are responsible for each other. And this understanding that we are one living human fabric. This fabric knows that it is connected and attached even when we do not notice that. And on October 7th, we learned on our own flesh this physical connection between each and every one, the pain of those who have been raped, murdered, massacred, taken captive, and injured. This is a pain that hurts all of us. And it reminds us that it's not just pain that connects us, it's also strength and power. These values that are so important to Judaism, I have encountered very strongly in recent months. I've met population groups whom I've never met, conversations in communities far from where I live. And I met with religious and ultra-religious Jews whom I've never met before, and I met different people who are different with different expressions of Judaism, but what connects them all is the sanctity of life and the love of mankind, and the most important objective, which is bringing back the hostages. That is the tribal campfire, and this is what requires that we mobilize our personal resilience and project outside our national resilience, so that we can take difficult decisions, not easy decisions, but that are in line with our values, the perception of Judaism, and the promise that we gave to our children, a free nation in our land. And on the way, we meet with enclaves of ignorance all over the world that fail to see the ramifications of October 7th in their country. They fail to see that if we normalize rape and violence against women in one place in the world in wartime, it will happen, and sooner than they think, in other places in the world. Last week, I had the privilege to realize my civic duty and to speak on behalf of the women whose voices were brutally silenced. I felt that I managed to shock them as a mother and to reprimand the Human Rights Commission of the UN, and to break down their walls and and the silence that fell upon the hall was felt very powerfully. We as the State of Israel, we have the power and responsibility to serve as a light upon the nations and to show our uncompromising stance in bringing back immediately the hostages. These are the values of our Judaism. National resilience. National resilience relies on a confident and responsible and especially reliable leadership when the individual knows that he or she can trust the leadership, that they stand behind their words, and that promises generate matching actions, and that leads to national resilience. We are witnessing historic moments in which we will all have to decide how we make sure that our leaders live up to their promises, that a promise made a short while ago, an agreement achieved a short while ago will indeed be realized and will reignite our process of national security, of bringing back the security of all citizens of the State of Israel within the boundaries and borders of this country, so that once again we can become a free nation in our land. We don't have the right to remain silent, and it is our duty, those who have a voice, to protest when an elected government shows instability, and there are 120 such elected officials from the entire political spectrum, and they all share the same responsibility. I stand here with you. I stand here with you in the Herzliya conference, which is the Herzliya conference for national resilience, and it was initiated. This conference started in the year 2000. Just like my darling daughter Romi, which is the epitome of our agreement as a nation to analyze ourselves and to see ourselves as human on the one hand, just like my Romi, who knows how to laugh about herself, but also a conference that seeks to see how we as the citizens of this beautiful country are willing to assume responsibility for building our own resilience, and from there the resilience of the human fabric surrounding us, people with a shared destiny. And I will end with a sentence that I usually say because it symbolizes exactly what we all want to happen. Darkness can be expelled not with additional darkness, but by increasing the light. Let's continue to strengthen our resilience, the resilience of our nation as individuals and as a complex, and let's increase the light that will bring back to the return of our loved ones soon, today. Thank you very much.